Hi, this is Shira Rubinoff. I'm here with Ieva from Nordpass. She's the Chief Product Officer. Ieva, welcome.
Thank you, Shira. Really glad to be here.
Well, thank you. So, Ieva, today we're going to talk about passwords and actually being passwordless. And that's been a topic heavy in the security field and within organizations themselves. And it really goes back to people reusing passwords, putting post-it notes on their computers with their passwords listed, or even utilizing passwords across many different areas, whether it being their banking or logging into their Little League, all sorts of things where it can be compromised into areas that really don't have tight security. So my question is, what is the problem out there that businesses are now thinking about going passwordless? Why didn't this happen a while ago? Why is it such a big deal right now?
Yeah, thank you for a very good introduction into the problem that we all have. And it's true that, no matter how much effort goes into communicating to users, be it consumers and businesses, about the threats of reusing passwords or using weak passwords, this is still a really, really huge problem. Like we also run our own in-house research that shows, for example, that around 100 million of passwords that are around 300 billion in this world are simply a word password. And, I think I don't need to extrapolate there about the problem that we have there. And we know that like around 60%, or some studies even put to like more than 80% of breaches actually happen because of compromised credentials. And actually, there many organizations are also a target of phishing attempts that are really like a really big threat in terms when you have, for example, weak credentials in your company. So yeah, we've been actually speaking about passwordless for years now. It is not a new topic. It's not like we hear about it for the first time this year. And companies have developed all kinds of solutions that kind of put a plaster on top of a password. So we have, multi-factor authentication, SSO, that has been more and more widely used. However, none of these practices have solved the core of the problem. They are still based on the password, or they are not super secure, or they are inconvenient for the users to use. So in the result, we still have a really big problem, even though passwordless is not a new topic. And why we are talking about it more this year and today as well is that since around it's been around a year since the big three tech companies have pledged to move from passwords to a more secure solution, which they call passkeys. And this is a really big technological shift that we see starting to happen. And of course, this raises a lot of questions about what impact it might have for end users, but also for businesses. And why it is at the same time really exciting is that passkeys as a passwordless technology is a really, really good technology. It's very secure and it is very user-friendly. What is this witchcraft, you might ask? But actually it is a really, really great solution that we are really excited to see evolve. So we are now at the beginning of this technological transition, and I think it's really important to talk about it and make users and companies be more aware of it.
So let's talk human factors for a moment. When you spoke for a moment about phishing attempts and grabbing credentials of other people, obviously lots of phishing attempts, fake banks logging in, or social security, or anything that might yank on a person's personal life where they'll quickly add in their credentials, which might be a password. And utilizing that human weakness can be obviously a problem for organizations, that they become open for breaches. Again, human error, negligent, all sorts of things that we talk about that way. And when we talk about user-friendly, and we talk about not being an extra step for users, you hit the nail on the head with that. When there's extra steps for users, people either are very quick about it, putting up their post-it notes, utilizing the same things in order to remember, storing it in a place where they can't get to it. So there's a lot of controversy around that, but there's also a lot of adaptation. So that's very interesting. So one of the other questions is, will it be the same for small, medium businesses? Because when we talk about small, medium businesses, they have their own set of criteria that they look at, which might be different from large organizations. Can you talk to that point for a moment?
Yes, of course. So small businesses are actually, like, it's important to talk about them because they are, according to some studies, they are actually more likely to be targeted by cyber attacks, because I guess usually the threat actors think that these organizations invest less into their cybersecurity practices and policies and protect themselves less against the different threats. So actually, I believe that this passwordless technology shift is a really welcome technology, and it means that depending on how fast the shift is going to happen, the small and medium businesses actually are going to gain the benefits of it automatically. So even without doing much, there is going to be much more security, because a lot of for example, tools, online tools, and software that they use won't suddenly require passwords to be authenticated by their employees too. So the only thing, I guess, that these organizations should look into is interoperability with their other tools that they have, because obviously, depending on the organization, they might want to have certain security controls in place in terms of how the authentication to different tools happens. And this is something that they should look towards to, and see if their current tools support, for example, passkeys and the newest passwordless technologies. And when we talk about larger organizations, for example, then there's more things to consider, such as, for example, regulations, because passkeys are not applicable in all cases. They might not be compliant to certain guidelines or regulations. Also, in certain instances, they cannot even be used. Again, security controls are in question, and the chief information security officers need to think how much, let's say, they are willing to give to Google Cloud access and iCloud and so on. And of course, device limitations. That's something for small, medium businesses as well. So they have to also make sure that devices and the softwares the devices are running on actually are compatible with all passwordless solutions that they want to implement.
So interesting. There's always challenges when facing, as you mentioned, quite a few of them, but talking around what they need to do. We talk about the CISOs and organizations, and they have only a certain security budget, and they have to figure out what is a pain point today that I need to invest in order for my organization to be as secure. And obviously, you could spend millions of dollars, and it's infinite, how far you could go, how many layers of security, what you could put on there, and what needs to be focused on immediately. So if you were speaking to a CISO of a small, medium business, what would be your case to that small, medium business to say, look, this is something you need to focus on today because it is a pain point and it is a security risk that really trumps many others?
Yeah. So I guess I would talk through the angle of employee adoption of security policies, because as we said, passwordless and passkeys is such a simple, let's say, authentication method to use. We have to remember that no cybersecurity solutions are actually effective if the users are actually not using them. And really, passkeys is the most advanced in terms of user experience, and end user adoption should be really, really great. So I think this would be like one of the kind of convincing potentially points for the chief information security officers to really consider whether their current cybersecurity solutions support passwordless authentication. Yeah, and
So
of course the other. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, I wanted to actually take it a little further. Like, what challenges would it bring to educating the clients? Because that comes to a whole new level. It's one thing bringing to CISO, as you were explaining and expressing about the organizations themselves, but what about the challenges about educating its clients and end users?
Mm-hmm. So I guess it definitely does not come without challenges, as you already said in the beginning, because it's a new technology, new authentication method, and the old authentication methods are not going to just disappear overnight, which is good and bad when you think about it, because users can always fall back to the authentication methods that they are used to, but at the same time, they would not be reaping the benefits of the most secure way, and also kind of force the companies to maintain multiple authentication methods at the same time in this transition period. So I guess, yeah, there's not much, let's say, advice I can give there, let's say, because I think this transition period chaos is inevitable. So I guess the most important is to be aware of it and to be ready to support your clients no matter what authentication method they basically choose to use, and make sure that those authentication methods are compatible and can interoperate in between each other and can interoperate with your other cybersecurity solutions. I guess that's the main kind of advice I could have. Yeah.
You touched upon about letting the users know, making them aware. And I think that is so key. And it might sound so simple and obvious to organizations, and people are like, of course we're going to let them know. But a lot of these problems and cyber attacks or cyber failures or breaches or whatever you want to classify it as, is that there's no global awareness of certain cybersecurity measures that are taken within the organization in order to better the security within it. So as you said, make them aware, educate them. That's just part of good cyber hygiene within an organization. It's letting them know why. It's not just saying this is happening, explain why, let them be educated about it, make it global aware within the organization. So kudos for you to mention that. I think that was very important. And here's another thing. So how can businesses actually start preparing for these challenges? They're coming, what can they do?
So I would really try to stay on top of the latest developments in the area. So for example, following the FIDO alliance, that is the kind of behind the whole revolution, let's say, and also communication, obviously, from from Apple, Microsoft, and Google on this topic. I think it's very important. They themselves obviously also are going to invest and are already investing a lot in the education and the publicity of this technological shift. So it's I think very important to stay on top of this kind of developing trend. Following your competitors, I think, is important to see if they are already, for example, offering passwordless authentication, if they are, for example, an e-commerce vendor or another organization that has online, let's say, user management and login and so on. So of course there will be a lot of since every shift brings also a lot of opportunities. There will also be a lot of solutions offered in the market that will suggest, for example, seamless integration of passkeys on your own website or other solutions that can really, reap the benefits of this new technology. So I would just, suggest to keep an eye on the communication from the kind of the core or the source, the FIDO Alliance and the big tech. Watch your competitors and also watch out in the market for the solutions that are created on top of this technology. And of course, watch your own technical stack and see that it is compatible with it. Yeah.
Oh, that's some really great advice. And this topic has been very interesting. It's been a topic that's been discussed widely. And you mentioned some companies that have taken a strong stance around it and educating people. And I know that the audience really appreciates how you delved into it, giving them the pluses and minuses of it, giving them the challenges, and really educating them around that. And I think it boils down to the education of it as well. So you really covered some really important topic today. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. And thank you for sharing with our audience.
Thank you very much for having me, Shira. And yeah, I wish you best of luck.
You as well. Thank you.